I wanted to bring today's episode to the podcast talking all about donor eggs. You may be on this journey, and right now you may feel like donor eggs are your next best option. So, I wanted to talk about the mindset piece around selecting donor eggs. What are some typical questions that women have and couples have around this, and really what you can do to set yourself up from success from a mindset perspective. So, I'm very excited for you to listen to today's episode. Let's go. Hey, Adele, excited to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to be on this podcast. I've listened to it lots, and it's a wonderful full circle moment to be with you.
Awesome. Awesome. Amazing. Well, excited to have you. If you could share with me your journey and really how you came to do this work, because I don't think many people envision themselves doing this when they're little. I certainly didn't.
That's right, absolutely. So, 8 years ago, I found myself wanting to fall pregnant, and I was in my 40s. I'd left it very late, but I'd only just met really, my husband and the love of my life, and it just happened later in life for me. And so I actually was extremely naive about my biological clock, and I had, for some reason, a crazy notion that it's all going to be absolutely fine. I think my grandmother had my mum quite late in life, so I was like, yeah, it's good. I've got the good genes, no problem. And I've always felt extremely healthy and all of those things. And so much to my shock, although my AMH levels were amazing for my age, I was 41 when I was actually starting to try to fall pregnant. Met my husband at 40, so AMH levels were looking great, but when it came to going through IVF, the egg quality just wasn't there, and we got to the point of absolutely the embryos just weren't forming. And after a couple of rounds, my fertility specialist, who I'm really grateful to for being so honest, basically said, really, if you want to be a mum and you don't want to waste any more time, I would just go straight to donor egg. And although it was a massive shock, I didn't know anybody that had been down that route. I didn't really understand what that meant. As soon as I started to research it, I think I just felt, obviously, grief for the loss of my own eggs and all of the dreams that you have about having that little mini you and all of those things. However, after a while, I actually felt a sense of relief and just hope that there was a chance for me to be a mum and for us, my husband and I, to be a family. So I moved forward. It took a long time to get my head around it. It actually took 2 years. I had some stressful events going on in my life. My father was dying of cancer, and so and I didn't really, I was looking for counselling, and I did find a wonderful counsellor. However, she didn't have the experience of a donor egg journey, so she didn't quite understand exactly what I was going through. But it was helpful. And I decided at the time I was a massage therapist and always into therapies and alternative ways to support myself through everything, nutrition, all the way to guided meditations. And I found I wanted to seek a type of massage that might help me. So I was Googling fertility massage, and I actually came across a retreat that was being held in Bali in the August. I had my transfer a few months later. And so I took myself off to Bali on this retreat for a week. And it was incredible. It was a retreat full of work to uncover limiting beliefs, to really tap into my womb space, to tap into my creativity. And so after a week of uncovering so much emotion within myself, I just felt so amazing and so ready to have that embryo transfer. And obviously a whole lot of science helped, but my first transfer worked. And and then once I had my child, and came up for air after a couple of years of being a mum, I decided that I really wanted to help other people, help other women on this journey, because I felt like there was, really a massive gap in the IVF world between helping and the emotional support that women need when they're on that journey. And so I decided to train as a fertility coach, and here I am.
Yeah, I think that definitely this journey kind of most people don't come to it just because like, ooh, here I am. It's gone through that dark night of the soul. And then the Bali retreat sounds great. I've always wanted to go to Bali. It's been on my list. When we were in Australia years ago, I was with my husband, let's run over to Bali. He's like, oh, we'll get it next time. I'm like, that was 20 years ago. What are you talking about? But yeah, so I think it is the be able to do some of that inner work, which, we love the mind, body, spirit. Obviously we like the functional medicine, functional nutrition side of things with the testing, but also the intuition, your faith, the working on the mindset is equally as impactful, especially when you're dealing with, so you didn't have the low AMH, but then the poor egg quality. We see that all the time where people have gone through all these retrievals and poor egg quality. And you can start then, there's some things we can do from a functional medicine standpoint. But yeah, like it can be, devastating, right? Where you feel like you've had your solution and then it's not working and you're like, where do I go next? And sometimes, that's why I want to bring this topic to the podcast. And I've done one a couple of years ago, or maybe a year and a half or so ago, or maybe it's longer. I don't know. This podcast has almost been going on for 6 years, but it's talking about my journey with donor eggs. But I still think it's important where when you select donor eggs, sometimes people think, whoop, here we go. It'll just happen, right away. And so obviously we look at the functional side of things as well as the mindset piece. So today we're going to be, digging into the mental, emotional side of this and getting yourself kind of ready as you move forward with donor eggs. Because sometimes I see people that have gone through multiple failed IVFs and then multiple failed donor eggs. So it's not just like who we select our donor and off the races we go. It can be, there can be devastation on that side of things, side as well. So really important to work on your health to prepare for that. So yeah, and
can I just
go ahead.
Just interjecting on that 100%. And it's working on that, that you have to be that IVF warrior, right? You kind of really move into that archetype. And often women that are on the donor egg journey, they've already climbed that IVF mountain. They've often had, 10 rounds, up to 10 rounds, sometimes more of IVF before they move to donor egg. And so they've climbed that mountain, and you get kind of, I don't want to say comfortable, but you understand the IVF, route. You know all of the what's coming, and then all of a sudden you're faced with choosing a donor and wrapping your mindset around, what does this mean for me, and the grief of losing your own eggs. And that's a whole new mountain to climb, which is really hard for women. And so then they move forward with that. And then they find that it doesn't work straight away. And it's so hard to keep that resilience, to keep that emotional resilience, that mental resilience. It's so hard to, and also the IVF warrior archetype that you start to embody can kind of, not work for you as well, because that's all about that real male energy of let's keep moving forward. Let's, just keep going. And yet sometimes we just have to put that armor down for a moment and be vulnerable and allow those, sometimes hugely repressed emotions to come to the surface, to make some space, in our wombs, and to be able to process the grief that's happened for us already, so that we can start to move forward feeling a little bit lighter. And that helps with the resilience piece as well.
Yeah, moving more into that receiving piece, right? Because a lot of times it's like that type A, push, and get the action plan, go. And then we forgot to like slow down, receive. And that's when the body knows it's safe to have your baby. So let's kind of talk about it. So when you decide to go for donor eggs, can you maybe talk a little bit more about that process? So like, obviously I went through this. My daughter's 22 and my son's 19. So I got the donor profile in the mail. I remember like stalking the mailbox, going the mail person. I'm like, where's my profile? And it came in a little ratty sheet of paper. And, we selected, I think the second one we found, I'm like super giant. I'm like 6 foot. And so I wanted to make sure that the donor was somewhat tall because my husband's 5'7", or he says he's 5'8", but really he's 5'7". And so I'm like, I wanted to have a tall donor. And so I think I got for my daughter like 5'9", and she's about the same height as so both my kids are the same height, like a little bit taller than my husband. I'm still the tallest. But, and then for my son, we had a separate donor. And so, his donor was 5'7". But obviously there's more than the height. Like there's the physical characteristics, and then they give you back to the maternal and the paternal grandparents and their health, and you've signed up there. But I didn't have a picture or anything like that. So maybe kind of let us know in 2023, what are we doing as we're, selecting our donor, kind of what's the process like there?
Yeah, so obviously it varies from country to country. Excuse me. Yeah, it varies from country to country. So many decisions to make, and I kind of look at it as a filtering process. So depending on your budget, what you could afford to do. Some people, obviously, it's wonderful if you can find a known donor. Thinking of your child in the future, then yeah, wonderful if you can find a known donor. However, it's not that easy if you don't know anybody in your family, if you don't have a friend that's of the right age and and willing to do that for you. It's not something you can ask your friends and family, willy-nilly. Do you want to give me your eggs? So
I actually
it's
did.
finding.
I actually had a couple of like close girlfriends, and I'm like, okay. And both of them, looking back, I'm like, both of these, all my friends somehow, I don't got the height thing again, but they're like 5'2", 5'1". I'm like, okay, well, because both of these people did not want to have their own children. They had decided no children for them. And this was, bear in mind, this was like I would have been like 30. So they were around 30 as well. And so I asked them, and both of them said, I just can't do it because I don't want children. I'm worried that if I see the child, that then they'll then want children. It was a whole mind game for them. And so at the time, I remember being like a little bit miffed that they didn't do that. But looking back, like we ended up having an anonymous donor. Obviously, I didn't see the picture of the person, but that worked out the best for us. But yeah, so sometimes people will, they say the best thing is if you have a sister who's already had their children, to go ask her.
100%, 100%. So you might be lucky. You might have friends or family that can donate to you. Or that you can go to agencies and they'll have known donors. So that's wonderful. If that's not an option for you, then there's anonymous donors. Depending where you are in the world, for example, in Australia, it's really hard there aren't any agencies at all. It's illegal to purchase human tissue, and ovum comes under that. So you have to go overseas, or some of the IVF companies will help to arrange it for you with egg banks. But yeah, it's pretty expensive. So myself, I went to South Africa. Reason being, we went to South Africa, and not many people seem to know about South Africa. It kind of flies under the radar a little bit, but we went to Cape Town and we had a fantastic experience. And the reason that I chose Cape Town was you get a profile and you're able to choose. So you see photos of your donors. They are anonymous, but you see lots of photos and you get a really great descriptive profile to really get a feel for that donor, but also to be able to show your child in the future all of the information that you have. So for me, that was important. So I felt like I'd had all my choices ripped away from me, and I wanted to choose a donor and be able to see the photos. So that was a really amazing process. We used a company in Australia, Dr. Bernstein and his wife Denise, who I highly recommend, and they looked after us and helped to organise it all with the clinic in South Africa in Cape Town. And yeah, it was a really smooth process, and I came home with my beautiful stowaway and pregnancy, and we had a fantastic holiday in South Africa. So, we had that opportunity to really relax, do the safari, do all of those fabulous things. I was in like the best mindset, really great. All those happy holiday vibes were there. Of course, there was anxiety as well, whilst waiting for it to happen, but there was lots of distractions. So that was really great. So, but there are many, many, many options overseas. A lot of people are going to Spain. Spain is high up on the donor egg clinics top 10, if you like. They offer anonymous donors, but they seem to be getting some fantastic results, and the affordability is there. Hawaii is another great destination. Lots of different places in Europe. I've heard that Portugal is an excellent option, and they aren't anonymous, and you can choose. Spain, as a lot of other countries in Europe, use the photo matching software, so they will pick your donor. You don't get to choose at all. So yeah, there's lots of
That's
different
interesting.
options.
So what they take a picture of you and
Yeah.
sort of once link someone that's a little more like your physical characteristics.
Yeah, so they ask for, maybe up to 6 photos of different sides of your profile, etc. And they have software, and they put it through their database, and they'll come up with donors that match your features. So that's, and I've spoken. I have a podcast called Donor Egg Mama, and I've interviewed lots of women that have been out to Spain and have been through that process and have their babies in arms, or little ones now, and they say there's a great likeness, and it's just a nice family fit for them, and that was a great option for them. And I think it really just depends on your budget, number one, because you've generally been through a long IVF journey already, and been out of pocket a lot. Some people have to sacrifice a lot financially, and there's a lot of grief that comes with that financial loss too. So I think you have to be practical about it. Choose the option that's right for you, and there's lots of fantastic clinics in the States, obviously, and egg banks in the States, and I think Canada, it's a little bit more tricky. I've got a client in Canada at the moment that's navigating this journey, and there aren't as many options in Canada as far as I'm aware. So, but yeah, I say to everybody, look outside the box. Choosing this as a holiday option as well, to give yourself a break, can be really good for you and your mindset. And when your subconscious brain is feeling relaxed, then it's going to set off all of the hormones throughout your body that are going to help your pregnancy, help your chances of pregnancy. So yeah, looking overseas is always a great option if that's something that would work for you. And I've heard of women in the States going to Mexico. I've got a client at the moment that's off to Peru, and obviously, some people have a different ethnicity, and they need to go to a country that's going to have donors of that ethnicity as well. So there's lots of different considerations.
Yeah. So when I did it, my son was born in 2004. And so that was the last time in Canada where they did the split. So basically I paid for someone to go through IVF, and in turn she had male factor. So she gave me half of her eggs, and then I paid for her IVF. And that's kind of how they were getting around it back then. So, and then in 2004, they stopped that, and no longer having that allowed in Canada. And like we have the profiles we send there on the little pieces of paper. But I guess kind of what are we looking at a ballpark cost for this now? Because like back then it was 10,000 for that, and then if I found another clinic, I think it was going to be 40K. And so we're lucky it worked on our, like for both donors, it worked on the first fresh transfer. But what are we looking at now?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't have the figures. I can tell you that in South Africa for us, we went in 2016, that our whole trip was around 20,000 Australian dollars. So, I'm talking flights, all of the IVF expenses, and a nice holiday. So that was extremely affordable. So I think the IVF component of that was about 13,000 Australian dollars. And yeah,
I've
it
heard like
varies so much.
80K. Like I've heard like big dollars for this.
Yeah, huge amounts, but it varies from clinic to clinic. Certainly, the states, it is expensive, and if cost is a real factor for you, there's a great website actually called Egg Donation Friends, and they have like an IVF abroad guide and so much information. That's their jam. They're all about where to go and clinics and all of that information. So yeah, I often refer people to that website and look at that myself to help others. So that's a really great. They're doing a great job. Thank you, guys.
And what about some of the mindset hurdles? What are you seeing there? I the one that people ask me, and I guess I thought I kind of blanked part of this out when I was going through it, but will will I bond with the baby? Oh wait, it's not my baby. Just the fact that it's growing in you. Of course, it's your baby. Then they kind of take on your your DNA, but like when I have the child, will I be able to bond with the baby, or will I just want to run out the room? What are you seeing? What are you seeing there?
Yeah, so many fears, and that's one of them. So I run a free Facebook group called Donor Egg IVF Emotions Support, and the questions that come up in that group all of the time are, yes, I'm worried that I'm not going to bond with my future child, and I always talk to them about the fact that the moment you started longing for a child, the moment that you started your IVF process, that is when you started the attachment to this baby that's going to be growing inside you. And and the attachment and the bond has been there for a long time. And once you do get that pregnancy and you see your body swell and you feel all those pregnancy hormones, then things change. Things change. I've interviewed so far over 20 women on my podcast who have been through very long, really harrowing journeys, donor egg IVF journeys, and some of them have experienced postpartum depression. But I think that would happen to, and they used to say this as well, they don't think it's because of the donor egg. They think it's because it would have happened to them anyway, because of all of the repressed emotions that they've had to hold on to throughout the journey. And sometimes you can have no issues at all and have postpartum depression. So sorry, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent. But sorry, I've completely forgotten what I was saying.
Yeah, no, I was just
You asked me about.
Yeah, it's okay. I was just going to say what the heck was I going to say there? Yeah, that postpartum piece is interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because after I had my daughter, my hormones were so messed up. Well, first of all, my breastfeeding, like I remember at one point she was 4 months old. I look over, I'm like, oh my goodness. My brother's like, what's going on? Are you starving this child? And I didn't realize that she wasn't getting enough milk. I'd be on there like nursing forever. And then I didn't have like postpartum rage, but there definitely was like postpartum like crankiness going on. Like that's why we really believe in working on your health ahead of time, because we've had people that just say the baby came and they were so low they couldn't even bond with the baby, and that forget about a donor part of it. It was their own baby, although the donor is your own baby anyways. But like because your hormones are imbalanced to begin with, why are you struggling to conceive? So the postpartum period can be interesting, right? Because a lot of times we're in a big panic to have our child, and we forget about our health. We forget about how this is impacting the health of the child, and then the postpartum period is critical. But it is it is the bonding piece. I don't know about you, but I had no like issue at all. I'm like, this was people even say I look like this child. I'm like, she's a gorgeous creature. I'm like, I'm fine looking. She is like a beauty. And so I'm like, no, but that's why I'm like, she doesn't need to have my nose. I'm good with that. Like, you're fine. Um, but yeah, sometimes we get a lot caught up kind of, and at the time, again, I had this height thing, right? I wanted and also you do kind of want to have someone that looks like you. I don't think we dream of having our children through donor eggs, but it is to be able to, like, I was able to just sort of like let go of how it was going to happen and just know that I was going to have my child. And I remember at the time I was like, I just was, I was, what was it? I was just going to, like, as far as, yeah, like I just knew I was going to have a child somehow. And I remember thinking other people that were going through IVF, I thought, wow, you've really got it bad. Like, you've gone through this years and years. I'm just whipping over here to do this donor egg thing. Like, I literally, like, looking back, that's like completely insane, right? Like, I don't know, but I had reframed it so much in my mind that I was like, oh, this is easier. Like, but of course, going through this, it has its its piece, and sort of what would you tell the children, and what will that piece go. So yeah, maybe like, but anything you want to share more about the bonding piece?
Yeah, so no, I totally hear you. You can, to work on your health, work on your emotions, work on the grief that you've been through already on an IVF journey, and then also the loss of your own eggs. That's a big thing that comes up for many women, is grieving the loss of your own eggs, grieving the loss of your genetic connection, to your future child. And it's like any grief journey, it has those 7 stages, and to recognize each stage that's coming up for you, and to be supported in whatever way that looks like for you. So if you like joining support groups, if you feel like you need some one-to-one support, or you just want to be connected with other women that are going through a similar journey, then there's resources out there for you. But to recognize, it's very easy, especially for the A-type personality, to just gloss over and squash down and keep busy and move on, and, get those big girl pants on and not sink into those feelings. And because it feels weak to be vulnerable, and it feels weak to feel any kind of pity for yourself. Yet on this journey, we have to be our best friends. We have to mother ourselves. We have to get really good at mothering ourselves first, and looking after that really terrified, that really sad little girl within ourselves first, so that if we can be a good parent to ourselves and soothe ourselves and allow all of that emotion out, then we can start moving on with more strength and more resilience and a lighter heart and a lighter womb space. We've cleared all of that heavy emotion out. So I really believe, as you are helping women so much with their health and hormonal balance, the mindset and working on emotions is really important too. Just being aware. I think when you start to shine the light of awareness on these different aspects within yourself, we can start to transmute that pain, and it becomes wisdom, it becomes learning, it becomes evolvement, and we learn things about ourselves that we can help our future children with, too, as they grow and evolve.
Yeah, because if we don't address this stuff, that stuff will just seep out later. It'll come out later. So at the time, going through this, I was like, Sarah, keep going, blah, 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 I'm fine. I remember not like I'm not a crier. That's just not how I'm more of like a anger, or I'm cranky, that kind of thing. And for me, I remember I didn't cry about this until I'm like, my husband's like, I'm like, I want to get a dog. This is before we're getting pregnant. He's like, I don't want a dog. I don't want the responsibility. I'm like, I want a dog. And he broke down and we got the dog. But, and then years later, I finally, because I literally, when I was going through this, I would be like, I didn't think I was stressed. Years later, of course I was stressed. How ridiculous. I didn't think it. And so the fact that I had like TMJ going on and my neck was all tense and all these things. So years later, I had my own, healing journey and my health journey. And, not that I was a disaster or anything, but like I took some time to work on my health. And that's why I changed my whole business. I was in like corporate corporate Canada or the corporate world, like HR for over 20 years. And I'm like firing people and dealing with all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, how did I get here? And then discover that my passion is to have people that are on the fertility side of things look at things differently and help them there. So, and then, then it doesn't feel like work when it's your passion. But,
Absolutely.
and what about so telling your child? I remember people saying, Sarah, are you going to tell them? I'm like, and my thing was like, of course I'm gonna. I have a podcast and I talk about everything here, and I also how I process things. I talk. My husband's like, shut up, you're talking too much. But no, but that's how I share things and how I process stuff. I talk about it, so I don't keep things in. And I thought, this is not about me. So for me personally, I'm like, this is not about me. This is their journey. And I will tell them, as early as I can. Because my mom was adopted and didn't tell us that she was adopted until I was 12. And I was like, what? What do you mean you're adopted? I remember being shocked, and I was 12. So I kind of started telling the kids around 4 or 5 when I kind of had the books out. Mommy had to borrow some eggs for another lady. And, this. And so I went, and back then they didn't have any of the books about the donor eggs. There was nothing. I was just finding some books and we do a little story time, and I tell them that way. And then my son, so then some of them, my daughter didn't really want to know more about the donor, and my son did. And so, shared with him. But like each kid kind of wants their own, their own questions on things like that. My son's a little more inquisitive on things. So he was like, tell me more. Tell me more about the other mother. Who is the other mother? And yes, we did have the, you're not my mother kind of thing. And I'm like, well, I guess I must be doing a good job. If you don't like me, that means I'm doing a good job. But yeah, like some of that piece there. So yeah, kind of maybe share with me what you're seeing there with, you should tell your child, or what's your take?
Yeah, so my take, funny that you had your experience with your mum being adopted, because my husband's adopted. And so his mum was actually a real influence, a really amazing influence on me. And she said, she like back in the late 60s, she had my husband. And so they were real forward thinkers, and they were all about talking to the boys. They've got 2 adopted sons regularly, from babies onwards, just to keep on telling them not in a like overdoing it, but just to keep on letting them know their story, their birth story, so that it was never a shock and there was never a big reveal. And I was like, wow, that is so incredible. And obviously now when I now being in this world, and I've researched and listened to all the experts that talk about it, and that's exactly what they say. It's great if you can, tell your children young and often, so that there's no big reveal moment, and it just becomes a natural part of your family story. And so I feel so passionate about that now. So for me, what I did is I literally would hold my newborn baby in my arms, and sing a song that I made up to my baby. And I'd talk about, mummy's egg's not working, and we went on a long journey to find you, and here you are. And I would sob and sob as I was singing this. And it was a beautiful healing thing for me as well, to be able to say all of that out to my newborn baby, that of course has no idea, but that became my kind of way of practicing telling my child. So right from the get-go, I would tell my child as nursing in my arms, and it was healing for me, as you say, to talk about it, to get it off out of off your chest, literally. And then as time went on, I'd use all the books. There's so many incredible books now being written by women that have been on the journey, that are now wanting to give back to the community and share their unique way of how they've shared their conception story with their children. And there's something for everybody now. It's absolutely incredible, and I've spoken to some fabulous authors out there. One book that I absolutely love recently, from a fellow Canadian, actually, Becky Morrison. She's wonderful, and she's written a book called The Search for the Magical Egg. and I absolutely loved that book. I've bought it for my son. He's 6 now, and he really loves this book. It's very subtle, and it gets the message across and opens conversations, and he knows 100% what his journey is, because I'm really proud about it, and that's what I want to, that's how I want to help other women to get to a point of, that's why I'm talking on my podcast and sharing all of these stories, because I really, really want to tear down any walls of shame about this, because it is still comes with stigma. This journey still comes with stigma. It still could be a taboo subject. And it breaks my heart that women feel ashamed that they've had to do this, because from my perspective, and I know this can only come with time when you're on the other side of the journey, but I feel that your journey needs to be celebrated, because you've had that mental resilience, all of that strength and determination to keep moving forward on this IVF journey, because you've got so much love on your heart to share with this child that you so want. These children are so wanted, so longed for, and so I think it's wonderful if you are able to get to that place of pride, feel proud of yourself that you've done that, and then the beautiful emotions that are transferred to your child when you're talking about it, because you're so proud of the journey that you've been on. And I just want all these children to feel proud of their parents, and also that their journey into the world was a bit of a long journey, and they're such special people to be here. And that's my take on the whole subject, and that's kind of a real mission for me as well, to really just tear down those curtains of secrecy and stigma associated with donor egg family creation or completion.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's almost like with the adoption thing where everyone was like kind of secretive about that. And I was like, I just think secrets are just, you don't want that big reveal. So that's what I was very open about stuff. And I've shared on my podcast and written a book and all that stuff. It's, but yeah. And then I remember just my son where he's like, yeah, I was trying to tell people this one, like around maybe 10, 11 in there. He's like out there. I was explaining to people about the donor egg thing, blah, 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 blah. He goes, then mom, it just got too too difficult to explain. So then I just said I was adopted from Chicago. Anyways, I should have written down all the stuff this kid has said in his life. He's like 19, but he's just I'm like, dude, the stuff you come up with. But anyways, yeah, and where my daughter is like, oh, I don't really like. People are like, oh, you don't really look like your mom. She's like, yeah, donor egg. Like, it's not a. But we talked about it a lot, right? Because plus they hear me rambling away in here too with about fertility. So it's like it's top of mind, but they're not thinking about it nonstop. And I'm their mom, and again, like, yeah, there's going to be times when kids hate their mom. That's fine. To me, you're doing a good job.
Oh
I
yeah,
can't love you all the time.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've had
Those teen
that.
years, say it was living hell. Living hell. Like, oh my God, what happened? I think they spent a lot of money on the donor egg. Oh my God. I was like, but yeah. So anyways, okay. So let's just, what are some, what else do you want to say here? Any advice for someone that's like just starting out on they've just selected donor eggs? Anything you like to like advice and words of wisdom there? Anything you like to impart?
Yeah, just to look at any emotions that are coming up for them, and to, if they want to be part of a community, to reach out. That you don't have to go through this alone. There are so many women going through this now, and yeah, there's so many incredible podcasts out there. So you don't have to feel so alone on this journey and isolated anymore. And just to know that it's all going to work out, and you're going to have that beautiful family. It's just a bit of a numbers game, unfortunately. It's numbers and working on that emotional resilience. I think I love guided meditation. I use guided meditation a lot with my clients, and visualization, and it really helps. Helps them to just keep the vision in mind of what they want, and align the subconscious brain with what you want to bring into reality.
I think you've got a womb healing for our listeners here. So I will have that in the show notes. So what can they expect when they hear that? I was listening to part of it. So yeah, it
Yeah,
sounds
yeah.
lovely. You
Look,
got a very soothing voice, very soothing, very lovely. Yes.
thank you, thank you. Yes, I really chuckle to myself that I've got. Everybody always says you've got such a soothing voice, and I'm from Essex originally in the UK, and it's certainly not known for a soothing um, accent. So I've done the Essex girls proud. Anyway, so yes, it's a soothing meditation, and it's helping you to connect to your womb space and to acknowledge any emotions that are coming up for you there. And yeah, just the disappointments that can be held there, or the crashing devastations that happen on an IVF journey, the pregnancy losses, and all of that. So the womb healing guided meditation is to really help you to bring you to that womb space, acknowledge the emotions that may be held there, and help you to move through those emotions, to free your energy, to help the energy that's caught there move through you. It's all energy in motion. And my clients love it. I hope you love it too.
Awesome. Amazing. Any final thoughts on our topic today, Adele?
It's been wonderful to talk to you, Sarah, and I really appreciate all the incredible work that you've put out there in the fertility community. I've often listened to your podcasts and absolutely love hearing your interviews. And it's a bit of a full circle moment for me today, being a guest. So thank you so much for that. And for anybody listening, if you're considering a donor egg journey and you want to hear about other people's stories, tune into all the considerations that you need to think about. You can check out the Donor Egg Mama podcast. And if you want some one-on-one support, I've walked the journey, and I would love to support you through that journey.
Amazing. Thank you. Awesome.